This video is brought to you by anti-gravity lithium-ion batteries used by Monster Energy Star Racing Yamaha and Monster Energy Kawasaki and many more teams. And you can use the same battery as Eli Tomac, Jason Anderson, and others. Anti-gravity batteries offer more power and capacity than the competitors because they give you a larger lithium battery pack. But additionally, they offer features like the world's first batteries with built-in jump starting that will never leave you stranded. So check them out at antigravitybatteries.com.
Hey guys, welcome to Fox Raceway, and we are at the 2023 Husqvarna launch. This is the FC 250 2023 edition. We are in June, and we are already talking about 2023 motorcycles. Holy crap, I can't believe it. But as you guys know, if you guys watch Racer X and you're on YouTube, we just went to Redbud, which is awesome. But now we're back in Southern California with the Husqvarnas, and we're going to break this thing down. So if you guys are wondering, what's the difference, right? Husqvarna, KTMs, a lot of you guys, Keefer, it's the same thing. Yes, a lot of ways it is, more so in 2023, but there are some differences still. 10 millimeter lower fork and shock, as well as Pro Taper handlebars, and the muffler is still different. For 2023, the subframe is the same as the KTM, the swing arm is the same, so more so than ever, the Husqvarna and KTM are just morphing into one motorcycle, minus, obviously, the cosmetic change. Now, we're going to talk about that later on because there's a lot to break down with this color scheme. But more importantly, we're going to break down the motorcycle here at Fox Raceway. I got my guy, Kenny Day, 250 specialist. He's going to talk about what's good, what's bad, what he likes, map switch, quick shift, lots to talk about, hydraulic clutch, Brembo brakes, and this gray neon yellow plastic that I'm undecided on. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're going to go riding. All right, guys, wrapped up here at Fox Raceway. I brought the Fox guy with me to ride the FC 250, Kenny Day. Rip off your weight, your age, what you're all about so the people know what you're all about.
Okay, well, let's see. I'm 34, almost 35. We're getting close. That's scary. 150 pounds. I work for Fox Racing. I'm an athlete manager, so I just take care of all of the pro guys for the main part, and then I have some influence on product as well.
But you can ride a dirt bike. What year did you win 30 championship at Loretta's?
2018, long time ago.
2018 Loretta champion here. So between the two of us, 2 championships. All right, so FC 250, if you guys watch the 22.5 video, look, there's not a lot of changes here, but Kenny hasn't ridden the new chassis, so I'm going to give you a fresh voice right now. For me, I'll come in and talk to you what I think, but Kenny, right off the bat, let's talk about the chassis since that's the big difference. You've ridden these bikes in the past. You're a smaller guy, 10 millimeter lower suspension. So give me the way the chassis and the suspension work for you.
So, yeah, as Chris said, I did ride the old chassis quite a bit for about a year. So I was excited for the new one. 2 things that really stood out for me about the new one. The 10 millimeter lower, I really felt like I was a bit taller on the bike, which I'm 5'6", so this is like a good thing for me. If I can get closer to the ground, I can touch the ground, I feel like I'm pretty fast. But so yeah, just in the corners, I really feel like I'm over the bike more. Just in and out, like I just feel like I have a little more control, manhandling the bike around. So that was one. One thing for me that really stood out about the old chassis, and I didn't notice it a ton on the West Coast, but when I went to the East Coast, I could feel when I got way down into the stroke, I felt like I could feel the frame flex, like a wallow. So sand rollers, that kind of thing. And then some of the transitions today, some of the stuff I could land farther off and there'd be like another jump right after. I didn't feel that. I felt like I had a little bit more stiffness, and it didn't just blow through like it did before. So that was a benefit for me.
Yeah, so for me, out here on the West Coast, and I've complained about this with last year's chassis, when you're on the edges of your tires, the old chassis kind of wallowed and flexed too much. With the new chassis, when you're on the edges of your tires out here on the west side, it feel a little bit more planted, so I have more tire contact patch. So that is a benefit. And I would say that goes to show with all of these bikes here, even the Husqvarna, all of 250, 350, and 450, on the edges of your tires, I feel less wallow, and I just have more tire feel. Now, for me, suspension side, compared to last year's model, I would say it has more mid-range and slightly better RPM response down low. You've had a little bit of time on that, so Kenny, give us your feedback on the engine.
Yeah, so I could agree. I did have a little more snap at the bottom, especially when I went to map 2. We also changed the airbox cover and put the ventilated one on. It just makes it a little bit more crispy. It's not crazy, but it's enough to where when I'm coming out of the corners, second, and I go to click third, there's power there. The older one, I did feel like it was still a little bit, you just needed a little more off the bottom. But overall, like, I absolutely love how long these bikes pull. Like, I can leave it in second, I can leave it in third, whatever it is, and I can just rev it to the moon. And when I was out there revving it, like, I felt like I was being an asshole to the bike. But then I really think about it. If you're at the National and you watch RJ Hampshire, any of those guys on the Husky, they come around, you know, like, the bike is revved to the moon. But that's where these things make their power. But they've always lacked a little bit on the bottom. Of course, but I always want more on the bottom with this bike. Yeah, if I had more on the bottom and then had that mid and top, like, I'd be real stoked on that.
Look at guys, it's tough to get low end. Like, if you want front side like a Yamaha, you're really not going to find that anywhere else with any other brand. You're going to have good RPM response with the Husqvarna. Compared to the KTM, I do feel like they're really close. If I could tell you guys, last year, I felt the KTM had more low end than the Husqvarna, but this year I honestly feel like the Husqvarna has more snap down low than the current KTM. So for me, if you guys want more low end, a little bit more front side to get out of that fluff like we had some of the stuff here at Paula, the Husqvarna is a little bit better. I would prefer a ventilated airbox for me on the 250. On the 450 side of things, that's too much. I'm on the verge of having too much power on the 450 side. So the 250, I think we want all the power we can get. So engine is everything in the 250. And just like Kenny said, this likes to be revved. So when you hear some guy revving his bike, this is where it enjoys the power. This is where it likes to be ridden. Mid to top end, this is where the bike feels the best. You click up to third, we talked about this earlier, the chassis is a little bit calmer, you have more traction, and this thing will pull forever. Unlike any other 250 out there, the Austrian brand and the Husqvarna brands seem to pull the farthest. And you think you got to shift, you don't really got to shift. You come out of the corner in second gear, you can let that gear eat a little bit before you have to make that shift to third. So for me, I like that. I'm still more of a map 1 guy. Kenny, you were in map 2 a little bit. So for me, I prefer map 1. I just like a little bit more of a longer linear pull. Moving on the suspension side of things, like Kenny said, I don't really agree with the 10 millimeter lower setting. I prefer a little bit higher, but I'm also 6 foot. I have a longer inseam, so I'd like to have a little bit of a longer feel, I guess, and the KTM has that for me, even in length. I feel like the KTM is a little bit longer. This thing seems a little bit more compact and shorter. Maybe it has something to do with the suspension setting, I don't know, or maybe it's visual because the rear fender is a little stubby, and it just seems like it's a shorter, compact bike. Now, moving on to the ergonomics. I like a Pro Taper bar, for one. But this bar is long for me. It's at 8'11". I would cut this bar down a little bit. But overall, sitting on the bike, it's comfortable. I don't really notice it being lower to the ground. So that's something I guess I should ask you.
I do, actually. That was the first thing. And I've been riding around on I've been running like an RC bend, you know, which is not really high. But when I got on this today, between the suspension and, like I said, I felt like I was higher up. The bars did feel low. It took me a couple of laps to get used to. I'd see a benefit in it, though, for me. Like I said, being over the bike, I can kind of handle it like I want to. So I don't really have any complaints about the bar.
One thing I want to mention, vibration. I still feel like these bikes vibrate more than Japanese bikes. It's something you got to get used to. If you watch these other videos, we'll talk about that as well. But coming off of a Japanese bike, the steel frame bike seems to vibrate a little bit more, and for whatever reason, I feel like this year in 23, I have a little bit more vibration for whatever reason. Maybe it's the frame change or what they're doing. The swing arm is obviously different this year, so whatever it is, I just feel a little bit more vibration. But if you are a steel frame guy, you don't really notice it. So, yeah, maybe the harmonics coming through. So that's something to be noticed. But otherwise, for me, these bikes have always been reliable. So far, I have a KTM that I've been putting time on recently. 40 hours, no problems, oil changes. So for me, it's a really good buy. Is it better than a 22? For me, I would say yes, it's a better purchase. If you had a difference between $1,000 between a 22 and a 23, to me, the 23 is worth that. Something for you, Kenny, to answer?
I would say yes. I would say worth it. Overall, I feel like this chassis is better. It's a lot more compliant, especially in like the deep stroke stuff that I was talking about. I got rid of that wallowing feel, so that was huge for me. Me being a shorter stature, yeah, I think this is a better buy than the other one.
Some little trinkets like quick shift, traction control. Look, I'm from old school. I'm 45 years old. Kenny's almost 35 years old. We're used to using the clutch, turning off the gas a little bit. I mean, sure, it works. It may work a little bit better on the start. It may give you a wheel on your competitors if you don't have to shut off your throttle, but it's an added feature that you can use if you want to use it. Traction control on 250, for me, it's kind of silly. I think that is something you use on a bigger bike, but it's there for you to play with if you want to do that. So overall, it runs clean. FI is clean. There is a little bit of a decel pop today for me on the 250. That's something I think as it breaks in, it gets better. So if you get one of these bikes, don't freak out. Over time, about 4 to 5 hours, that decel pop will mellow out. And also, just to note, you guys, when you get a new Husqvarna, it will take 6 to 7 hours for your suspension to break in. Your engine will feel a little bit slow and tight. These bikes take a little bit longer to break in. So just relax, calm down. Do the proper break-in. If you guys are wondering what that is, out here, normally when we do production testing, 15 minutes, cool down, do that times 4, so 1 hour, and you should be ready to go. And then hop on your bike and enjoy it. So overall, Husqvarna did a great job. Last thing before we leave, let's talk about the looks. Not a huge fan of the color of the frame. A lot of stuff going on with the Husqvarna. It grows on you as you see it, but in photos, it just doesn't do the bike justice. I would prefer a black frame. Kenny, thoughts?
I totally agree with you. It's just a weird color match, right? You got like a sparkly blue frame. You can't really see that in the photos, but in the sun, the frame has a sparkle to it. And then just the tie together with the gray. Yeah, I agree with Chris. A black frame would be sweet. I'm sure with the right graphics company, you could make this thing look really cool. But just off the showroom floor, it's a little different, right? It looks a little bit better on the 450 with the white panels. The black, eh.
All right, so that wraps it up here today. Go to racerxonline.com for more videos. If you guys want to subscribe, 12 issues, $30. Always giving away free gifts when you subscribe, so don't forget to do that. And we'll be back again pretty soon. 23 time is here. Another 23 video coming soon at racerxonline.com. See ya.